Hello, this is the second tutorial in how to create the canopy roof here. And what I've done here is I've taken these points, the individual points, and they're actually hosted. This is the host of all these points, and this point in itself is then hosted by this reference lines, the origin here at the origo point between the two vertical reference planes. So what I'm going to do now, or what I've done here, is I've taken all these points here. This is the second line of points, and I've given them a parameter value, and I call them the 2BO, 2 bottom offset. The third line, obviously, third line of points here, I've given it a value of, or a parameter of 3BO, and so on and so forth, all the way out until even the seventh point out here. The seventh point out here is being driven by, or have the parameter value of 7BO. And what happened is basically that this is the driving point, the origin point of these. So when I move these along, I actually change the position of the different individual points. And the second thing we're going to do now is we're going to create top offsets from these individual points. And but before I do that, I can actually just place a new point. No, let's just start with this one here. This is going to be fine. So I take the point element, I set the set work plane, and I'm not going to use this one as a reference anymore. So this one is the reference of the line, and these points are the reference of this point. And I'm going to place new points that are being hosted by these points. And since as I activated the point command, and then I set the work plane here, the local work plane, and then I hover over here and can say that it wants to be actually a vertical reference plane, not a horizontal one. So I need to use the tab key here to shift until I get into the point tool here. There it is. I want to place these 3 points here. I just click on this one, click on this one, and click on this one. And I can take these 3 points, hold down control, and I mark them again, and then assign a new value to them. And this new value that I'm going to set is going to be 1 TO, 1 top offset. And I assign a new value to these points as well. So this is obviously going to be 2 top offset, and this is also going to be a type parameter for now. And then I'm going to continue down here. So this is my first line. So I go point, set the work plane. I'm going to drag this one up. Drag this one up, and I'll drag this one up. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these 2 points here, the exterior points here, top exterior points, and I assign a new value to them. And I call that value 3 top offset. But I'm not going to use this value here to do the same. So I'm going to mark this one instead, and I'm going to assign a new value to that one, and it's going to be 3 center top offset. So it's not going to have the same parameter associated with it as its brethren on the side there. And this is something I'm going to repeat throughout here. So the first 2 lines I just use the same parameter for them, but then I'm shifting so that the center segment here, the center line here with the points on it, the values that actually the top offset value for them are going to be different from the one that I have on the sides here. So I'll mark them again, and I call it the 4 top offset. And I mark this one, and I call it the 4 center top offsets. I can leave them all as a type parameter. going to repeat this again here. This value out here. And I assign a new value to this one. I call it 7 top offset value. Now you might have noticed here that I didn't actually place a point on top of this one, so this is the actual point that's still being hosted by this one. There's no point that's actually net that this one is hosting. And the reason I didn't do that is because with this last point I'm actually going to assign an angular parameter for that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this bottom point here on the side, the center point here on the bottom, and this one. I'm going to use the spline through points tool here. I'm going to say that's going to be a reference line actually. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place a new point on this line. So I place the point here, and what I'm basically saying is that so I click on this point here, or I can use the reference line tool. I can set the work plane, and I can associate the new line I'm going to draw with that reference plane, and I draw that in 90-degree angle. Now the second thing I'm going to do here is I clicked on the line, and then I had a temporary dimension string. I made it permanent, and I'm going to associate a parameter with it. So I'm going to add parameter, and I'm going to call this one the center top offset. And the reason I'm doing this is because I also want to assign an angle parameter to this point. So if I click on this point here, I have something called rotation angle. So that means I can flip this one, and as I associate a value with it, it actually turns 15 degrees, which is great. I can also assign the parameter, so I'm going to call that the canopy overhang angle. It's awfully long, but we can use that this time around. So canopy overhang angle, that's fine. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to associate a point with this line, and that point is going to be placed at the top. So if I click on this point here, I can say, hey, you're going to be placed at 1 or 100% of the length of this line here. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tell this point here that this point is going to be hosted at the 50% of the length of this line, which basically means that this line is going to be hosted at the center part of this line. So I clicked on the point down below. Let's change the value to 0.5, so 50%. Now, if I zoom in here, you can see that it looks fairly good, but it's not being placed at the exact same position as this point. And the reason that is because these lines that I originally created here, they have a different angle between them. So the segment of the angle here and the segment of the angle here is different. So I'm going to assign a parameter to that as well. So I go into the top view, go angular parameter, and then I click on the first segment here, and then I use the second one to create a new one. So what I have here is this is an angle that actually stipulates the distance, the angle between these two lines here. I'm going to associate a parameter with that. I'm going to say canopy angle. There it is. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this line, or this dimension here, and I'm also going to associate, and I'm going to call it the HA for half angle. It doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to define that this canopy angle drives the HA. So I'm going to take this canopy angle, mark the text here, use Control-C, and I go into HA, and I can paste this one in here and divide it by 2. And by doing that, I'm actually stipulating that the HA is going to be half the value of the canopy angle. So if I change this canopy angle now up until 60 degrees, the half angle is also going to flex along with it, which is grand. So I think I'm going to pause there, and then